Now, fast forward 2023, the fact that we could dream, we could actually do it as NIRF number 3, I think that is a testimony under the guidance of Professor Chatterjee. And the fact that coming first in class is easy, holding it to that position is difficult. And we did it in the second year in a row. Now, all this did not happen just like that. If you look at the campus, what we have is just 2 hills. I remember those days, it was just a barren piece of land, 2 hills. And if you look at it, we did not make it something like a Uttaranchal, like we have taken care of the sustainability part, that we can only do limited construction, but taking care that it is in harmony with nature. So there's a lot of thought process behind which what we have done. 2009, we published something called, again, under Dr. Chatterjee's guidance, 2047, there's a book which we published, still there in the library. He spoke about 2047, Viksit Bharat now, but 2009 is what we gave to India. 2014, when people never spoke about diversity, equity, inclusivity, we were the first time to actually get into this kind of a diversity, and which was very well appreciated by business. Then, if you look at the Indian system, somebody with 7 years, 8 years, 9 years of experience, it's too risky for him or her to come to a full-time course, because that's what the industry doesn't want, people with so much experience from an IIM. So, for whatever reason, some people at that time did not decide to go for an MBA. So, we were the pioneers in this distance learning education, and now everybody is trying to follow that. So, this is in 2000 where we gave it to them. We also had a business museum. It's just not a museum. Yesterday, I met one of the alumni, came with his family, and his kid went to the ISRO pavilion and was inspired that he wants to be a space scientist. I think that is the kind of legacy which we want to do it. Then if you look at it, PGP was our flagship course, but we debated whether we should look at other courses. Now, the nature of the CAT examination, again, I come from a paper and pencil CAT and heavily biased towards engineers those days, because we had 98% engineers, and 98% engineers in a batch doesn't do justice to an MBA course. We did not tweak the process. We started looking at other criteria to have more diversity. But then we made the bold move of starting something called liberal studies management. And we see business as exact science. It is not. Today we talk about humanitarian AI, we talk about humanitarian logistics, because there's a lot of liberal arts. So that was a bold move, and the industry actually appreciated, and if you look at it, the course is doing extremely well. The other aspect is, if you look at it, there is always a friction between academia and industry for whatever reasons. But then we thought that how we bridge the gap. So we started something called PhD in practice track, where working professionals come here with their business problems. They do this research and take it back to the industry. So they get a PhD, and in fact, the industry also benefits out of it. Now, what we are seeing is all these visible changes. In fact, the globalizing Indian thought, that's the ethos, because we wanted to position ourselves in that, because A was looking at finance, C was looking at quant. So we positioned it consistently, and we had a very successful conference in London. And in fact, after Saurav Ganguly's removing the t-shirt, I think this is the second event which actually made a really an impact at Lord's. And what I'm trying to say is, one of our alums, Shayanima Ghosh, she did all the groundwork. We do not have an office in London. She did the recce. She was instrumental. So why did she do it? Maybe not for fame, but the fact that it's like a parent trying to nurture the child, and this child, the institute will always be there to support you. But as alums, it's very important that let's support the institute in whatever way, because it's not that, of course, if they are the biggest stakeholders, if the institute does well, we all get benefited. But at the end of the day, what impact we leave, I think that's what matters. So, given these opening statements, maybe Professor Chatterjee, if you look at it, these are the visible changes which we see. But there's a lot, maybe 10x, 20x, invisible things which are actually there. So if you can throw some light on that aspect.
Okay. Thank you. The first visible thing is that this is Sandeep Chatterjee and this is Debashis Chatterjee. You might get the impression that Chatterjees have taken over IIM Kozhikode, which is not the truth. It belongs to all of us. The invisible part, let me describe this in a little informal detail. Yesterday, around midnight, I saw near MDC plastic bottles stacked up to be carried for an excursion that our social welfare committee has planned, and then this is also delivered to you. So I saw a lot of bottles out here. So I had to send a little note to my SWC chair as well as alumni chair, who responded on his own, saying that we have a commitment of zero plastic zone and we have to keep that commitment. So the request from the SWC chair was that just this time we couldn't find alternatives. It will not happen again in the future. It was a sincere note. But in my mind, it was just that, just this time, just this one time, is the basis of all kinds of lapses that you will go through. Just this time, if you had showed up at 10 o'clock when this was planned, we'd have kept up our commitment to authenticity. When we say 10 o'clock, we mean 10 o'clock. I was in office sharp 10. I knew that it would not start at 10. Even then, I was there at sharp 10 because I have to live up to my promise, whether you do it or not. It's a duty, it's a calling. It's not a profession, it's not a job, it's a calling. Now, I have seen this calling in alumni. I've seen them in various batches, of student. That kind of commitment, that level of intensity. There's a person sitting to my left without playing on his surname. I can only tell you that he has been extremely consistent in not missing a single board meeting attendance. This is the consistency that we bet on. Please applaud this. This is necessary. Now, I have to be globalizing Indian thought, but then I have to achieve global standards. One is timekeeping, punctuality. Very, very critical. I know you have a leisurely late night, so I don't want to impose this on you. This is not a classroom discipline. But this is something innate that comes to us naturally. That's something that you'd define in Tagore's language as akla chalo re. And the fundamentals of akla chalo re is that it is not that you're alone. It simply means that when you stand for something, you don't fall for everything. When you stand for globalizing Indian thought, you have to achieve global standards. That's why IIM Kozhikode, all our programs, new programs are globally ranked now by QS, globally accredited, every program. This is our goal. So I have to achieve those global standards both internally and externally. I can't say plastic ban and plastic all over the campus. That's not global standard. I say 10 o'clock my alumni meet will be and I start at 10:30. That's not global standard. Right? I come here for just to see little, to be entertained. That's not global standard. That's not Harvard, MIT, what an alumni do when they meet. And so I am trying to figure out, how do we get out of being puppets of the past? We know most of India is like this. We are aware of that. How do we transcend those limitations? Is the journey. The next curve of India will be about that. How do we build that credibility in the global space? And one of this is between thought, our intent, and the content of what we do, there has to be some degree of consistency. If there isn't, we all fail. I may have promised a few more things than I've been able to deliver for the institution, but you can see the struggle goes on. We are trying our very best. With utmost humility and intensity, we are trying to be there. And so what does a rank mean externally? It means, what does number 3 in NIRF ranking mean for me? It means just that, number 3 in NIRF ranking. It does not mean anything more. What goes into it, what comes out of it, is for you to decide and decipher. For me, just that number means only a number. But the effort behind it, the consistency of the effort, and the ability to transcend our own limitations as an institute, to compare ourselves only with ourselves, is the hallmark of this, is the very nature of the journey. And I hope you will understand as right-thinking, committed citizens of IIM Kozhikode, Planet IIMK, as far as I can see. In another 5 years' time, we'll have people in all major cities in the world. And I'm sure that you will be able to distinguish yourself in the manner that you come across to a global citizen, that you are of that kind. You don't compromise on core aspects, right? Whether it's environmental sensitivity, eco-sensitivity, punctuality, commitment to professional standards. This has to be lived every day, and there's no question of letting up. I think that is the journey of whenever you find excellence in your cohort, which you will see that there's a consistency in their methods. And I want you to discover that consistency for yourself and hope that it shows up. There's lots that goes into the deans that I have, they're working relentlessly in uh, in pushing our standards. Our board is working relentlessly to see what can we do going forward. How can we transcend our limitations of geography and everything else that you can think of. And so the work we do is that on an everyday basis, tomorrow is another day, and tomorrow how can we get better than what we were yesterday and today. This little small scale improvements in standards, little bit of this has taken us this far. And you see, I always believe that we are a work in progress. We have not arrived anywhere. Numbers are not, but in excellence is not an entitlement, but an everyday work. And that is precisely what I am at. And this is the entirety of the secret that you can think of. The rest is a matter of details, right? Thank you for asking that question, though. Yeah, go ahead.
So coming back to my next point, if you look at it, globalizing Indian thought, I think London has been a very, very successful event. In fact, Oxford, London Business School, they're all talking about it. So having done that, what are the future plans for the institute? If you can tell our alumni, and what kind of support you are looking from the alumni for that.
Yeah, we have this enormous appetite for self-promotion. I mean, this is not just IIM Kozhikode, everybody does it. And I have a sense that this is a signal of weakness. If I am good, I am good in my action, in my deeds, not in the way I talk about myself. I would let the others do the talking rather than I'm talking about myself. Why would I want the others to do this? Because I'm not sure if somebody is better than me, because I can only see my internal dynamic. I can't see what's happening in another school, another domain, another geography. So I can only reference others. So when the reference comes from London, let's say it comes from an LSE professor or an Oxford professor. In the Oxford dean, before he came and met me at the Taj Hotel, there's only one Taj Hotel which is distinguishing itself by its lack of service. And it's a terrible blow to the Taj image. I do not know why they are perpetuating with that hotel. But anyway, in that hotel, the Dean of Oxford Science School of Business, Soumitra Datta, I had an appointment with him. I said, I can drive, take a taxi to Oxford or take a bus and I'll meet you there at your. He said, no, I'll come and meet you. You've done so well, you've achieved. So he came and we had 1 hour conversation in which he was rattling off all the rankings, all that you've done so far. You can see that I would imagine that I have to tell him what we are doing, but they've got all that data. Just a click of a button. He needs to know who this guy is, what he represents. And it's just a matter of click over. I don't have to talk to him about who we are, how great we are. So I offered him a cup of tea and we had a long conversation. And I said, would you come and speak for our convocation on the 4th of April? He said, I have another plan. I said, it will be a great idea if you could do. He said, yes, I have this in my mind, so I will. So I had his date blocked. I do not know whether he'll eventually show up. But the fact of the matter is that we have to be endorsed by someone else. I don't think we need to talk about yourself, brag about ourselves. They will find out anyway. Your bragging doesn't help. What it does, it reveals your insecurity that you have to tell people how good you are. I don't think I need to do that. All I need to do is demonstrate through my everyday actions that I really can make an impact. And this is very important for us to realize as a school. Understating my achievements is always a beneficial thing, because when others catch up with you, then they figure out who you are. The surprise element that comes with it is the recall value of who you are. You bragged yourself endlessly. You know, I was with Farooq Engineer in a conversation. Very interesting conversation. Angus Fraser on one side, Farooq Engineer on the other. Those of us who went there will recall. When the conversation was beginning and Farooq Engineer was saying, Gavaskar and I were having a late evening conversation while we were batting. He said we should survive the evening because tomorrow we will get our daily allowance, which was 50 rupees. That was the allowance for Test cricket. And so they had to bat out the evening to be entitled to that 50 rupees. And Farooq Engineer says, I'm so proud of the Indian Cricket Board. I get 40 quids, which is about 40,000 rupees or something in terms of pension from the BCCI. I said, no other board gives me a pension. So you see, and Farooq is a British citizen and all of that. And so he's talking about India. And when he talks about India, and he talks about our courage to go out there and hold a conference right in the middle of, Oxbridge, Oxford, Cambridge, and he says, this is where I believe that the audacity of the new generation of cricketers tell me that Indian cricket has arrived. It's no longer. Then we went on and had a conversation, Sandeep, about how Kapil Dev represented the first really impulse of India conquering the world. He said, before Kapil Dev, Farooq Engineer was saying, before Kapil Dev, we had defeated Australia in Australia, West Indies in West Indies. We had conquered, but nobody talked about us. And then I reminded him that when Kapil Dev held that cup, television had arrived. So he was far more visible than any of you would be in your time where it was all black and white and people would not know in the way they know today. So he said, yes, I never thought of that. So the visibility part is, we are fortuitous that we have become more and more visible. I mean, this has been a deliberate attempt on my part to look at our branding. But the visibility is a happening. It may not be, we may be visible, but there is no question of not doing the work that you're supposed to do. So when Farooq was asked this question, so why did you play for 50 rupees a day when you had other options doing business? His answer would be something like, we don't play for the gallery, we play for the country. We played for our country. So this generation of cricketers, flamboyant, brilliant, built the foundation for the later ones. So Virat Kohli, Saurav Ganguly, Rahul Dravid, all of whom own apartments near Lords. I mean, this was inconceivable for the Farooq's generation of. So this generation that has built the school with diligent work may not be visible to the world outside. I may be the visible face, but that does not mean that I'm doing the work alone. There are my deans, there are my faculty, there are students, and there's this babbling little kid who will be alumni hopefully someday. You see, they're building the conversation. She's talking to herself, or I don't know, he or she. But nevertheless, this is important that we have conversations with ourselves. We have conversations not just about how the samosa was, which is legitimate in an discussion like this, but what can we do to contribute to this mammoth institutional effort to globalize Indian thought? It's not easy, of course not. So the long answer to your short question is, why did I go to London? Because that's the hub, financial capital of the world. And we had the Indian press covering us for the first time, India Today, TV channels, because जो लंदन से होके आता है वो बहुत ज़्यादा कीमती होता है. हमारे देश में वही बात बोलो कोई सुनता नहीं है. So it is but natural. Our next destination is probably New York or somewhere in South Africa. We don't know yet. But I've just started it. Some of you guys will take it in different directions. I do not know where that will be. Yeah.
So I will now open it up because it's our event. So if there are any questions, please feel free, because this is an opportunity, because a lot of visible changes happening every time I come here. There's something or other. So if there are questions, please feel free to, because this is, again, as I said, it's our event. So any questions from the audience? Yeah, I think there's.
Please identify yourself so that I know your name and also your batch, which class you're from. Yeah, somebody run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. Particularly the opening you talked about time management. In fact, we are here at 9:45. We are just talking about it. What happens? Thanks for doing that.
Great,
In
thank
fact,
you.
I am following you, particularly some of your articles and the books are. While we are talking about globalizing Indian thought, what is your view of the leadership? You know, the way you write from the mythology and things like that. Something that are you planning to bring it to academics too?
Well, the thing is that any nation, any individual, any organization has multiple narratives. One is the narrative of matter. Matter as in what we did, cause-effect relationship. If I do this, this will happen. And the other is narrative of mythology. What is mythology? It's the imaginative recreation of human possibilities. So if you think mythology is just a pulp fiction, it has no value in reality, in material reality, you are under a great illusion. In fact, the greatest illusion creators of India, namely Indian cinema, if you look at any movie, it's a replication of two books, two epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So what does mythology do? It does not take us back in time. It gives us a sense of the human condition in specific contexts with reference to how human beings are repeating the same thing over and over again. There's been no, it's like the human DNA, the code is there, the internal, it's a mental code that we keep repeating. And if we follow mythology, we will not make the same mistakes that we've made. Now, you might wonder, what does this do to the hardcore issue of business? See, all these businesses, I had a conversation, Sandeep, with Nitin Noria, who was the Dean of Harvard Business School at that point in time. So two of us wanted to do a paper on Gandhian leadership. He said, "नहीं, Gandhi नहीं, Krishna के ऊपर लिखता है." I said, why not Gandhi, why Krishna? He says, nobody goes out to do business in the name of Gandhi. But they will look at such, a picture of Krishna and they will read the Gita or quote a sloka, even if they don't understand. But Krishna is more formidable. I said, why do you think he's more formidable? And then we understood the flexibility that, that's the one word that, Narayan Murthy consistently uses the word. And what is that flexibility? It doesn't mean that you are going to be inauthentic. It means the ability to see a problem from multiple angles, figure out multiple ways of solving a problem. That's the basis of innovation. So if you look at mythology, what does it give you? So my first understanding of mythology was with Joseph Campbell. He used to train American Foreign Service officers based on European mythologies. He has a book called The Myth of the Hero. And if you look at, he studied Indian mythology in detail. And we recognize that those who have understood mythology don't make the mistakes of omission and commission going forward, because they can read these characters pretty well in the corporate world, in their administrative world. And so you have to have a modicum of understanding of what mythology does rather than what it is. What it does is it moves us in ways that the wise ones have discovered. And it is possible that you will not make the same mistake over and over again that others have made. The short-termism, trying to be too clever, and trying to browbeat the other, deception, lies, all of that stuff goes into the package. So Mahabharata is a text of every human possibility. So if you read that book, so I'm not projecting mythology as a retrograde step of going back to the past or towing a political line. I've never told that. People who know me know that I don't belong to any political or ideological entity. And I've not allowed the institution to be co-opted by any of those forces. However, it is very important for us to know that myth is not mithya. Myth is projection of reality in a certain space and time, and there are timeless elements of myth, and that's important. I hope I've answered your question.
Follow-on question is, will you bring some of those principles
In the classroom?
into classrooms?
Yeah,
Because most of them, what I learned myself and also learned in the school 10 years back, is most of them influenced by whatever Western taught us.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a lot of things here in
Yeah.
India, because the tagline of this institution also so unique.
Yes.
There is an opportunity for us to become that USP of it.
No, I agree with you, but we have a culture here. At least I I believe in that culture, which is you allow change to happen by osmosis, not by directives. As director, I can do what I teach my book called Krishna the Seven Sense in classroom. I go and teach it. In my LSM program, we have a core. I go and teach it. I'm starting a coaching process based on Indian wisdom. And I'm doing it in France, in Germany right now. Not so much in India, online, largely online. But the fact is this, I can do it myself, I can model it. However, I cannot force a faculty to do something that he or she doesn't want to do. So intrinsically, by osmosis, when people realize that this is a value, they will pick it up. I can only do it my way. To a point, I can teach, and I teach, and I virtually do everything. I teach in class, PGPs, I address PhDs. I can't claim I teach them. I do executive education program, roughly 200 hours of teaching. I do MDPs. I do virtually every activity that I can ask people to do. But I can't force them to take up a course. And this is not how we run this academic institution. I hope 10 years down the line, when you come back here, perhaps you'll be able to teach a course and not face the kind of resistance that you might assume one is facing here. This is a very liberal school, and liberal not in the sense of the intellectual liberalism, but liberal in spirit. And we want many streams of thoughts to flourish. It's not about dogma. That's the dharma of the institution, not the dogma. So the dharma has to play out in the way people want it, not the way I want.
Yeah, I think there's a question from.
Hello, my name is Girish Nankar. I come from private equity background for the last 15 years. We have been investing into education, and recently I invested into Marwadi University in Rajkot. And what I was surprised to learn in this, that there are 10,000 students, of which roughly 1,500 students are from 37 different countries. And these are the students who have come all the way from Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, not necessarily from the developed country. I see there's a huge opportunity for such people to come to India. But do you have any plans, tapping a large diaspora of people, a large number of students in these countries?
Yeah. What God sometimes cannot do, Marwaris end up doing it. How they do it, we don't know. But as an institution, it has been from day one. I was thinking of as of today, we have 37 nationalities that have been represented in our program under the ITEC, which is the Government of India's foreign ministry's initiative. But we have also been able to create 15% supernumerary seats for people from different countries applying to us. The difficulty of attracting, unlike the Marwari universities, we want a student of a certain caliber. So somebody who cracks the CAT exam and GMAT exam and scores that high as you have, for them to want admission in Indian institution, to attract them, Marwaris have no such compulsion. They can pick up anyone and admit. So we are not passport counting. We are simply saying, can we get legitimately high quality students who would otherwise land up in Australia and England, would rather come here. England is in a bad shape. I was talking to deans of British schools openly. I told them that in IIM, 300,000 students applying for 600 seats, 1:1,000. Here, students chase knowledge. In your country, knowledge is chasing students. You're looking for people to find it. 76% is the drop of international students to Britain now, as I'm talking. So you can see, if you hold on to your standards, you will be able to attract those people who would otherwise land in Britain. Third grade universities in Britain and Australia, they would rather come here. So we see a possibility, but we're not in a hurry. I'm not here to admit 10,000 foreign students. I'm here to admit high quality, 10% of our cohort should be international students. That they can compete with our students at the same level, compete for the jobs that they get. That makes us an institution of what you might call inclusive excellence. And so we are going to include them, but only based on our values and standards, not based on numbers, which is not our goal. Right? I hope I made it clear. Please invest. The amount of investment, a bit of that should come to us for one of our chairs. Very soon I'll inaugurate this. Professor Raju sitting here along with the team, with Professor Debashis Chatterjee and the Professor Salman, all of them have diligently worked out a formula for you to contribute. Please do so, because Marwari University will never be able to catch up with IIM Kozhikode. That much I can tell you. Right? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think there's one hand and one hand there. So we'll take these two because we can go on, but we have limited time. So we'll first go to Sandeep and then to.
None of the ladies have asked a question, so I'm waiting who will be the first to go. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so good morning. This is Sandeep Srivastav. I am associated with manufacturing sector automotive. My question is basically in this from 2020 to 24, in these 4 years, even we executed 2 manufacturing plants.
Wow,
It's something sizable, 200,000 square feet facilities.
wonderful.
And main thing, how we are teaching our students on ethical aspect of the business. Because if that is not there, and if their mental health is not there, they are going to fail. And that's the bigger challenge. What ideally you go to government for all this approval, although our rankings improving, everything fine, but we cannot talk here.
Yeah.
But it's still, I have to get those things done on a very logical way.
Yes.
And there is a time pressure, there is a business pressure.
Yes.
So that really has to be taken in, not only like one course or one subject. It should be throughout the whole process. So that really makes sense.
No, I couldn't disagree. I couldn't disagree with you, or I couldn't agree with you more on this, because this is my biggest concern. This is my biggest concern. The intellectually endowed are not necessarily ethically endowed. And if they are told, some of our students who come to the system, they are told from day one that you're brilliant, you're very bright. And they have to defend the fact that they're brilliant at all costs. And sometimes that cost is not worth paying, and we are going to soon see our students. This is something that I don't expect. This is something that will pain me if it happens. Soon see some of them violating ethical codes here and there. It's a slur on the institution. And this is something I can't, why? What is the beginning of ethical? If you go deep and if you ask that question, it starts with a basic assumption. What is the assumption? I would like to be treated in the manner that I treat others. I don't want my rights to be violated. If I believe in coming on time, I will expect everybody else to come on time. And if I do fair business, I want everybody, my vendors, to do ethical business. When that does not happen, then I feel violated. But when I project my own incompetence on others, I'm not that sensitive, because I'm not experiencing this subjectively. We are training a bunch of general managers from SEBI, and I had the privilege of coaching one of those who talks directly to the chairperson. You know what's happening in SEBI. Now, see what happens to a bright individual. When this individual is caught in an ethical storm, what happens to this very capable individual, and perhaps with the right intent? But you get caught in this because somebody is hurt by her actions, and that hurt has now snowballed into a national controversy. So if I keep the same basic principle in mind, that I would like to be treated in the same manner as I would like to treat others, but therefore I should not treat others unethically, inequitably. And it does not apply to humans. This institution has a living rights forum, not human rights. So we have cats, we have dogs, we have shelter houses for them. We don't kill a snake. See, there was a monarch butterfly, they call it nag something, a huge butterfly. I was taking a picture of that right in the morning. And the security guard knows more than I do that he should not kill the butterfly to preserve it. It should die in its habitat. So these sensitivities are lost to our students. See, after a evening party, PGP students, I see bottles lying everywhere, empty bottles. I'm sharing this with you because we are a family. I don't mind sharing this openly, and there's no media here, hopefully. And so what we are saying is, there are bottles lying, and somebody has to pick up the litter in the morning with vomit and all of that. I was so pained. I'm not saying drinking alcohol is banned, or you can't drink alcohol. You can drink alcohol, you can party. But when it spills over into our social space, when our kids are seeing this, then you are violating an ethical code. I think one of the aspects of alumni, if some of you can donate something to creating a center for professional ethics, professional behavior, we can groom corporates. Just make them sensitive to these little things, because business, Indian businesses, when they go abroad, you look at Sanjeev Goenka wanting to go to Australia, and he was telling me something interesting. He says, now it's no longer the capital I invest in Australia, how many people I employ there ethically. That's a benchmark for my investment, not how much money I invest. How many Australians am I employing full time and paying them wages and dealing with them by Australian standards? That's how Australia is going to benchmark Indian businesses. And there is no room. There is no room for slackening if I have to be a global standard organization or individual. We can't do business as we do business in India somewhere else. Just because our standards have not been always followed doesn't mean that, when I expand, you will see you'll be caught napping. There's no shortcut. India losing 0-3 to New Zealand is an ethical why. You did not prepare enough. You are in the T20 mode. You're not preparing for Test cricket. New Zealand has been preparing. You can see there's a loss of, so it is not Rohit Sharma's fault. It's an ethical standard that has dropped down. Preparation has dropped down. And we have to look at that very seriously as custodians of this institution value. Next time when you meet, please tell them that these are some of the stuff. We are here to have a conversation on these issues of professional and personal lives, because they matter. Throughout your journey, they will matter. It's not that it is a one semester exam you pass and then you can forget. Business ethics course is very different from ethics in life. And you have to look at it every day. We all make ethical violations. I am one of them too. But to be sensitive to that, to be able to get that feedback loop into the system is important.
I think there was a hand, I think. You can just...
Hi sir, this is Rangaprasad from EPGP09. Just reflecting on globalizing the Indian standards, I'm from software background, so I'll stick to my area. No matter what it is, India is not where we can produce truly global products in terms of the softwares, because I'm from that area. So is there anything which we are lacking in terms of bridging the industry and the institutional gaps? Can we do something better in this area? Because when I see the students, when I see the pressures from the colleges, people, I always feel we are in the survival instinct mode. We just survive. Okay, you get a salary, happy, lakh, 2 lakh, 24 lakhs, 36 lakhs. When I was on that category, but when I look at the kids now, when I look at the people now, they lost that appetite to be a truly global player, and we must have to be on top of this software, especially because we have that early advantages. Yeah. If India cannot become a global leader in software, it cannot become global leader in anything else, at least I believe, because we are just starting up in terms of manufacturing, in terms of institutes, in terms of other things. So what do you think we should do more, or maybe you can enlighten me on some things which I should look differently?
Well, I wish I had the answer to the question. I'm not dealing in software. I can only generalize based on what I know. What I know is that the audacity of assuming that you're a global player has been systematically subverted, for the lack of a more simple word, by our socialization processes. Look at a guy who is wanting to hide his notes from his classmates because he doesn't want to give away. And then when he gets married, he hides his wife from others during a dance because he has his hand around her like that. So we are very protective about what we've got. And we want to perpetuate because others should not trespass, right? Look at the way we get into trains and planes, and we get the picture. So it's a mindset. Not giving, holding on. Our private spaces should be squeaky clean, and the roads can have all the dust that it wants. So to be able to go beyond the narrow horizon of me and mine, I look at Chauhan's Limca. He had a global product. He sold out. to Pepsi or Coke, I don't remember which entity. Look at Bhatia, Hotmail. He sold out. See, I want to be deputy magistrate. Beyond that, I don't want to go because the colonial powers told me you can be up to deputy magistrate is always a white skinned guy, right? See, from Saudi, I had an offer from a software company. He says, the top end of our coaching business is being done by Britishers and Americans. The middle end is what we want India to step in. I said, for God's sake, don't assume the middle end. So the top end is manned by people from Cardiff and other universities. The top end of India is manned by Harvard and MITs. So please don't put us in that club. I refuse to do this. So there's a pecking order in the Middle East. You go consulting projects, top end will go to white skin and the middle or the lower end will go to brown skin. Now, just because it is there doesn't mean it will be there forever. See, our software guys have broken that jinx. So what is required within the country is a culture shift. Fundamentally, the shift will come from the audacity to believe that I can do it. There are entities in your space that are thinking global, imagining global standard. It's another 5-10 years from now when you will say, okay, I don't want to sell out. I want to perpetuate. I want to hold on and create a global equity. And this is a matter of time. When you have that courage of an A.R. Rahman to take on the world in music, of a Virat Kohli or Tendulkar take on the world, or Saurav Ganguly take on the world in cricket, it's a matter of time, and the same thing happens in business. It's just that the mindset of selling out, because I don't think this insecurity that I can't cross this threshold, otherwise I lose all my bearings. That fear, I remember MIT during my Fulbright scholarship. I had the chance to go to one of the dorms where these MIT students were discussing starting a company. Two of them in hushed conversations said, "Don't disclose this to anyone. Tomorrow we'll register the company. It's a global company." So between their ideation and execution, the time lag. So they want the world. They're just not talking about America. See, the all America thing is a global thing. So that's what made America what it is. That's what made England at once upon a time what it is. Now England has shrunk. It's becoming protectionist. India has got a different spirit to itself. And I'm sure you may blame the Prime Minister for whatever omissions or commissions. One thing he has done, he's shown the audacity of taking on the might of a Canadian. He has demonstrated these guts. So that has to be part of our DNA. It has to be, okay, I can take on the best in the world and I'm not worried about consequences. I may lose some money here and there, but let's move on. Let's take this on. I think that belief has to come from the family. So don't tell your own kid that India mein kuch karna hai. India mein nahi, bahar hoke aao, fir karo. You must conquer the world, then you come back home and you can rule. But going out is not such a bad idea. Go multiple geographies, see what's happening. Then you will know how good you are as a country, as an organization, and all of that. Sandeep?
I think
There's a lady after all. Okay. You are representing 60% of the PGP cohort. Do you know that? This year, that's been our intake, 60%. Yeah, give her a big hand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm Namrita. I'm from PGP 16. We are celebrating our 10-year milestone this year. My highlight for yesterday was I got in touch with, I called a random auto. Turns out it was the guy who used to come pick us up in 2016 and he had upgraded to a black auto.
Wow.
So this institute has impacted students and also the community at large, right? So how are we intentionally looking at what is your vision for this community, Kozhikode, Kundamangalam, even beyond, and how is this institute impacting that? What is your vision for 2040 for the community?
Great
and
question.
How can we help?
Great question. Wonderful. The thing is, if you cross the airport, if you go through the security, you'll see IIM Kozhikode and Airports Authority has put together a lounge called Gyan Punk. If you go to the municipal, the mayor's office, Kozhikode's, we have just got a lounge, reading lounge there. So for us, community capital is very critical. Our intellectual capital multiplied by our social capital builds our reputation capital. So the community, the other society, is critical amplifier or whatever it is that we do. So what we do, we give a crores of books worth to colleges around us, so that the books that you throw away after your graduation are not thrown away, they're preserved and they're given away. And so you can see in a very small way. Now, I have persuaded the board to give 5 crores for Wayanad. So the board has very generously sanctioned 5 crores. We are trying to build a climate center. You see, as you go to the central foyer, you will see near the Arjuna Path, there's a little bit of telling you what the climate condition here is on campus. So there's a faculty of mine who actually put together district-wise climate conditions. So we are not only just thinking of Kozhikode as a city, we are wondering how we can have our global impact. And alumni are already started to do this. The Indian Olympic dress was designed by one EPGP student. And I must compliment the EPGPs. You know, you have shoulder to shoulder with PGPs, you have demonstrated that you really care for the organization and it matters. And so, yeah. And then you see our placement. We have displaced the word placement and we replace this with care. What does it mean? It simply means that our job is to educate you to be employable, not to give you employment. That is the industry's job. So how do I enhance the employability quotient of not just our students here, auto rickshaw drivers out there? I have some ideas, and I told the mayor, I said, why did you give them instruction in English language, basic English and Hindi, which will make them much more friendly towards tourists. And so these ideas are there. Sometimes when the Chief Minister's office calls me for something, they want to pick my brain for. I'm freely available for that. So the question is that through osmosis, if you think of Kundamangalam before you came, 2001 Kundamangalam, topography, none of the shops that you see are, we are responsible for wide-bodied aircrafts flying into our airports. We are responsible for the ecosystem that you see. This is prime property. Kundamangalam is prime property now, and businesses have come, and so this will happen automatically as your institution gains in stature, and we have large number of faculty now, so we have a little more bandwidth to invest our intellectual capital. We have a center for social entrepreneurship. We have a climate center. So all these centers, we have a labor studies center. So all these centers are like ancillary units of the institution that are catering to a particular social sector. And if you want to invest in something, if you want to start a center that has community at your heart, I wanted a school called 2047. I went to Dubai to pitch for that school, and one of your alumni, he asked me, what is ROI for me if I invest, let's say, X number of crores? I said, your ROI is return on India. The rest of it I do not know. You have to decide what that means to you, right? So if I'm going to be thinking only of cash component, then the ethos of IIM Kozhikode I'm not reflecting that ethos. We are an institution. We know we are on this planet Earth for only a handful of years. And if I can make that difference, even in my small way, the only difference I can make is by giving, not by taking. Taking doesn't make any difference. If I only took, then the difference will not be visible. And so you decide for yourself how you're going to give to this institution, not just financially, that's one component, but in terms of your time, your imagination, your thought. The Sayonika that she was talking about in London, she was perpetually present throughout. I know she has a high-profile job in a bank. I know she has her own dues, weekends and all that, but it was 24/7. So I asked her while we were driving to Lord's, what are you getting out of it? She says the sense of being alive, and that's what you will get. When you give something, you are alive. You're radiantly alive as a person, and that's what we live for. I think that's what we live for. So that's all I have.
Yeah. I think we'll take the one last question.
Yeah.
Before we close.
Hello, sir. This is Devamalya De, EPGP 4. So I have been into operations, project management, real estate, and last 8 years in Bahrain. So from the time, this is my 10th year since passing out. And few of the instances where I have been still interacting and engaging with the institute. Uh, I remember IIMK was mentoring IIM Amritsar. So the first batch actually I went to Amritsar and had done a soft skills training for the first batch of IIM Amritsar. And 2 months back actually the defense studies program here, the students wanted to have some inputs on opportunities of working in the Gulf. So I had an online session with them. But right now, what I am excited to share with you, my third solo and fifth book has been published, and I wanted to give you a copy.
Thank you. And while you do that, I will be very happy to accept it, and you can bring it here, right here. Sandeep has authored a book, and he is somebody who is so hesitant to talk about it. So I thought I should talk about it. He's published a book. It's going to be published here on consulting. So look out for this, and please bring it here. I'm going to display it for you. What is this called? Maxims for modern warfare. Is it on sale?
It's basically dedicated to the modern human, cocooned in self-doubt, self-pity, and fear of fighting. So it is not just an inspiration call, but a call to action, to rise, to fight, and to take the battle to the opposition camp.
Oh, wonderful. So there you are. All the best.
So thank you so much. We can go on and on. Maybe the last question, I know, sorry.
There's a hand there.
Okay, we'll just, I think there's one hand. I think this is the last question. I'm sorry, we are slightly running behind schedule, but we'll take the last question.
I'm Ram from EPGP04 batch. The thing is, you have explained about the future of IIMK and the challenges from going from maybe 3 to 1. But that is, I see as an Indian context. But I think what we see today, there is a global challenge coming. One is like leader of Global South, are the moving things from China to India. So China to India relocation is basically will force the same Western model on India. But taking the leadership of Global South is a huge thing. I mean, it's basically talks like taking the Indian thoughts to the world. So this challenge is going to come from all the institutes. Like for example, IIMK, IIM Bangalore, IIM Ahmedabad, maybe anything. But this is where the difference comes, because here there is an opportunity to take the leadership and take the scope out the Indian way, rather than taking the same Western model, relocated to China, now relocating to India. That is becomes like Western plus China forced onto India. That should not be the way. So institute has a role to shape up, take the leadership. So next 20 years is going to be a very challenging thing that is going to come here.
Right.
So how you see, how you can be as an IIMK or maybe as a community can play in this, because this is where the difference is. If we simply don't do anything, then this Western model will be forced coming from China.
Yeah, I can see your anxiety, and I'm alive to that. The difficulty is Indian way is not one way, unfortunately. Indian way is multiple ways, unlike in China. I'll give you an example. I had led a team of IIT and IIM directors and university vice chancellors as part of seeing Obama Foundation's grant to Yale University for training. Just before the Indian batch, the Chinese vice chancellors had come. And the president of Yale University was comparing notes with me. He said, look, when the Chinese were here, after every class, they would huddle together, compare notes, make sure the notes fell in one line, and that summary would go to their higher authority. After the program was over, Indians started fighting with each other. Forget about notes, they would not share anything. And the whole thing would be diffused, but there would be no coherent voice. Now you may ask me which one of them is a better method. I would suggest that the Chinese mode of linear way will not enable them to grow beyond a point. And this is what we are seeing today. The linearity of their models are not, China has gone way beyond India. There's no question about that. But their growth has happened through forced harmony. But the tensions within have not been resolved. The creativity has not been unleashed. India's best hope is to understand what the Indian way is. There is a unity in this diversity. What is that unity? How does India unite? You have to understand we unite. When there's a crisis, the nation unites. The politicians have exploited that. When there is a score to be settled with the colonial power, we unite in cricket. So our unity will come from either an external threat, which is what I would not, or an internal leadership, which is going to say, okay, I understand your differences, but I am able to still harmonize based on some aspirational values. So when I say globalizing Indian thought, I am not ruling out multiple ways of globalizing Indian thought. This is not just one way. And so how do we bring all of these ways together like an umbrella and how do we accommodate diversity of voices? And that will be sustainable. Otherwise, the internal tensions will kill our growth going forward. And we see this everywhere. And those tensions are being exploited politically. You can see that's the reason why we are not growing in the way we should have grown by now. But who knows, that may be a better method when times are uncertain. So I'm not comparing India. India versus China is a misplaced comparison. What we have to do is first Indianize Indian thought. Forget about globalizing. How does an Indian believe in Indian thought itself? It is very difficult. The day I go from this campus, my anxiety is all these beautiful letters and slogans may be thrown away by my next person who would have a degree from Cambridge or Oxford and said, Indian thought hai kya? What is so about Indian thought? So when somebody like Meghna Desai was asked to speak in London about Indian thought, he said, yes, this is the only thing that India can export to the world. This is the only thing. Indian thought is the only thing that is exportable because it doesn't require passports. It doesn't require authorization. So our thoughts will penetrate the world if we know how to put it coherently. For instance, what is the summation of all this diversity? What is the unique, coherent point of view despite all of that? Tatas have gone global, number one brand of India globally, because they've been able to articulate that so well. We also make steel. Now, what does that mean? This is Indian thought, which means that we make a human being who makes steel. Steel is a byproduct. So I'm not invested in the diversity of products, but the unity of the aspiration of the human being. And so this is very critical for us. We need leaders who can unite those diverse forces, and those leaders are few and far in between. But once we have that kind of leadership, I think we'll be able to harmonize India in a way that you cannot imagine. I mean, how many different cuisines, cultures do you have that have global ramifications? I was in a elitist library of Britain, one of those Khandani libraries, British legacy, that is now owned by an Indian restaurant holder. And on the menu card, I saw something like BBC on the menu. I said, what is BBC? He says, Beyond Butter Chicken. Because people are fed up of butter chicken. So can I create a product? So this is India. We want to disrupt our own legacies in the way that is more relevant to the world. And it is okay to disrupt. We disrupted the IIM order. When Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta was looking at monolith of CAT, we are looking at gender diversity. When they're thinking of West bringing Harvard to India, we were thinking of taking India to Harvard and Oxford. We did exactly the opposite. And yet we succeeded, which simply means India has space for all of us. We have to occupy those spaces that are there for us to take. And Indian thought is capable because we are not linear in our thinking. This is our strength, not our weakness. And I am not comparing myself with China. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much, Professor Chatterjee. I think in the interest of time, maybe this is my last question. Again, you are in your third term. So what is the legacy you want to leave with? Because we all want to leave behind a legacy. So your thoughts on what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Well, I have a question for the audience. Do you want me to leave? How many of you want me to live? Tell me. I'm not going to take your name. You don't want me to live, right? You don't really live a legacy. Legacy is what you create on an everyday basis. I was in this coaching conversation with a very eminent, professors of INSEAD. So I said, I'm thinking that, I should take up this new role that I have on offer um, rather than stay in one place for that long. He says, what worries you? I said, what worries me is this legacy issue. He said, no, legacy is always going to be there, whether good or bad. Right? It will be there. And you cannot. So you don't leave a legacy. Honestly, Sandeep, I'm glad that you asked this question, but I've been reflecting on that for a long time. I was offered the role of IIM Calcutta's director. I'm saying this openly because this is an offer made 2 years back. And my own chairman was a very wise man, and because he leaves me alone most of the time. And he told me that, you should not take it up because your legacy is going to be compromised. What does that really mean? It means that the way one wants to do and work, the way one wants to create value, you must find an institutional space for your deepest values. Only then you can, on an everyday basis, you can create something. The image that I often remember as a kid, when I would see a jet plane move across a blue sky, leaving a white trail. As kids, we would wonder, look at that white trail, how is this white trail created? We would not know what's happening until somebody told us there's an engine that is constantly making that trail possible. That engine is something on an everyday basis. You get up in the morning and you ask yourself this question, am I radiantly alive to go to office, even though it's a Saturday and I'm going to meet alumni who have met some of them before? Is it worth it on a Saturday? Now, if this is a question that comes to me, then there's no point for me to stay here any longer. As long as I'm enjoying going to office, enjoying coming to meet you sharp at 10 o'clock, and radiantly alive going to my work, that's the legacy bit. And that's all I want to leave behind. Every day is a new day, and you have to live it to the full. That's the legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chatterjee. I think we can go on, but I think again, thank you so much for these questions because you made my life easy because I had to do less of talking. So with this note, I will just end this fire chat here. So I will just.